Hello, I am Raquel Crawford and I will now talk with Mr. Azay Guliyev, who is the head of the Azerbaijani delegation to the OSCE-PA and member of the parliament. Thank you, Mr. Azay Guliyev, for being on TV Berlin.
Thank you very much.
We would like to ask you if you could tell us about the recent situation in the conflict zone between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Before I move on the present military aggression of Armenia against Azerbaijan, which was launched on September 27, I would like to present some undeniable facts proving that Armenia deliberately went for this aggression and war crimes in the last 2 years. After governmental overthrow in Armenia in 2018, there was a little hope for peaceful settlement of Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict. We were thinking that new government headed by Pashinyan would be enough pragmatic and mature politician not to repeat the mistakes of his predecessors and accept the proposal of the OECD Minsk Group co-chairs on phase solution of the conflict. Phase solution means that in the first stage, Armenia leaves or de-occupies 7 regions surrounding Nagorno-Karabakh. In the second stage, Armenia demilitarized Nagorno-Karabakh and all internally displaced Azerbaijani people expelled from Nagorno-Karabakh and the other 7 surrounding regions returned back to their homes. In the last stage, final legal status of the Nagorno-Karabakh region of Azerbaijan decides on the joint consent of both communities, Armenian and Azerbaijan. But unfortunately, Pashinyan spared no effort to undermine peace talks and nullify what has been achieved for the last 2 decades at the negotiation table. Let me just tell you some of these actions of Armenian government totally disrupting peaceful solution of the conflict. First, Armenian defense ministers publicly declared that his government is getting ready for new war for new territories. It means that Armenia, unfortunately, doesn't stop its military aggression and occupation policy against Azerbaijan. And then Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan stated that Nagorno-Karabakh is Armenia and period. By declaring that Karabakh is Armenia and period is another attempt to destroy all the negotiations. Third, Pashinyan wanted to change all the established and agreed negotiation format, which was agreed and endorsed by the OECD Minsk Group co-chairing countries, to involve illegal and puppet regime of Nagorno-Karabakh so that artificially to trigger unnecessary tensions and hamper peace talks. And then after that, Pashinyan went to another provocation by holding so-called inauguration ceremony of the puppet regime of Nagorno-Karabakh in the occupied Shusha city, which is a very sacred place for Azerbaijan, which had been overwhelmingly populated by Azerbaijanis. It was almost 98% who lived in Shusha before the occupation. And then it was not enough. Armenia committed another military provocation on the border this time. As you know, that Armenia made a military attack on Azerbaijani, let's say, military forces as well as the civilians, and on July 12, and as a result of this military attacks, 12 Azerbaijani servicemen and 176-year-old civilian were killed. On August 23, the sabotage group of Armenian armed forces penetrated in our position to perpetrate terror act. The commander of Armenian sabotage group, First Lieutenant Gurgen Averdian, detained by the units of the armed forces of Azerbaijan, and he is now under the criminal investigation. All these facts and evidences show that Armenia was preparing to launch a new military aggression against Azerbaijan, and it happened on 27 September. Azerbaijan is responding to these acts of aggression and takes counter-offensive and retaliatory measures, resulting in liberation dozens of villages as well as Jabrai city. As you know that Azerbaijan has a legitimate right for self-defense under the Article 51 of UN Charter to defend its territory and its people.
We are receiving information that the armed forces of Armenia are targeting the civilian population and strategic infrastructure of Azerbaijan. Could you provide us with some more insights on this issue?
Yes, unfortunately, Armenia is blatantly and dishonestly demonstrating its ignorance of the globally approved norms and principles of international law. Armenia is deliberately targeting densely populated major cities and districts of Azerbaijan, some of which are situated hundreds of kilometers away from conflict zone. Killing of civilians is a war crime, and Armenia must be duly punished for such inhuman acts. Armenian state, by committing this crime, once again demonstrated its terrorist nature. Can you imagine, more than 15,000 shells fired at Azerbaijan cities and villages by Armenia. The cluster bombs banned by the international conventions were used by Armenia against the Ganja city, which is also another war crime. Moreover, missile attacks was launched on the largest hydroelectric power station in the Caucasus region, situated in the Mingachever city. Its destruction could lead to the humanitarian catastrophe for the people of Azerbaijan and neighboring countries, which is another crime against humanity. On October 6, Armenia fired a cluster rocket to the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline. It should be noted that the rocket landed only 10 meters away from the pipeline itself. The deliberate shelling of civilian population and infrastructure objects, which has the strategic importance belonging to the Republic of Azerbaijan, is a grave violation of international humanitarian law, including the Geneva Convention of 1949. It is an obvious war crime. As I already mentioned, Armenia should be held responsible for this war crime. As of today, 32 civilians of Azerbaijan have been killed and more than 165 were wounded. Unfortunately, more than 1,000 civilians, buildings and objects or properties are demolished or severely damaged by Armenian military forces.
Many countries and international organizations around the globe call on both parties to the conflict to immediately stop the hostilities and return to the negotiations. On what conditions can we witness the soonest restoration of ceasefire between Armenia and Azerbaijan?
Yes, as you pointed out, that many states, including the leadership of the OEC Minsk Group co-chair countries and the others, have been calling on Armenia and Azerbaijan to stop military operations. As I already mentioned, the military operations are going in the territory of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan has the legitimate right for self-defense. Secondly, Azerbaijan at the beginning of the conflict were in favor of having the negotiated solution to the conflict. Now Azerbaijan is also standing for the peaceful solution to the conflict. What we need now are the following. First of all, Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan, who said that Karabakh is Armenia, must apologize to the people of Azerbaijan, and he must admit that Karabakh is not Armenian. Secondly, Armenia must officially recognize the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and inviolability of international approved borders of Azerbaijan and completely, unconditionally, and immediately withdraw its military forces from all occupied territories of the Republic of Azerbaijan in conformity with the norms and principles of international law and for relevant resolutions of the Security Council. Third, Pashinyan must set up the schedule and timetable when Armenian armed forces will leave each occupied region of Azerbaijan. And then Minsk Group co-chairing country and other international organizations should give guarantee for implementing this timetable, the schedule. Azerbaijan's territorial integrity and sovereignty must be restored. There is no alternative to the territorial integrity and inviolability of the international recognized borders of Azerbaijan. If Armenia ready to de-occupy, to leave Azerbaijan territories according to the given schedule or timetable, I think there wouldn't be any reason to continue the military operations. Otherwise, it seems too difficult, even unrealistic, to stop the military operations or to stop liberation of Azerbaijani territories under such circumstances when Armenian military and the political leadership declares again the war against Azerbaijan, recruits the mercenaries from different countries, including France and Greece.
Do you think there is a real potential for the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict to transform into the full-fledged regional war?
Yes, unfortunately, it is the main goal of Armenia to involve the third party in order to put all the responsibility on the third party. Mainly, Armenia wants to engage the Russian Federation. As you know, that there is a treaty called the Collective Security Treaty Organization, Armenia, which is a part. By all means, Armenia tries to get involved this treaty into the conflict. But all these attempts were failed. I would say that yesterday, President of Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, made it clear that the military operations are not going in the territory of Armenia. The military operations are going in the territory of Azerbaijan. So there is no need for the collective security treaty organizations to step in.
Which position can take Germany as an European Union to avoid this scenario?
First, I think Germany should talk to France, because France should refrain from making a unilateral statement supporting Armenian aggression. As you know, the co-chairs, which is United States, Russian Federation, and France, should keep their neutrality, shouldn't support any of the sides, should be objective mediator to put an end of the conflict. But unfortunately, the last statement made by President Macron completely contradicts to this the mandate of France. By no means France shouldn't support or promote the Armenian aggression and the occupation. On the other hand, I think Germany as a country supporting territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan by its resolutions, by several statements made by the Bundestag and officially by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, should call on Armenia to comply with the international legal norms, as well as to withdraw its military forces or occupying forces from the Azerbaijani territories, as it has been demanding by the UN Security Council resolutions. I think it could be, of course, a good signal sending from Germany to the aggressor country that it is enough. We tolerated Armenia for about 30 years, but it is a time for Armenia to implement, to fulfill international community's demands. There were dozens of resolutions adopted by the Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, European Parliament, unambiguously supporting territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan, calling on Armenia to withdraw its military and occupying forces from Azerbaijan. None of them, have been implemented. But unfortunately, on contrary, Armenia still ignores all this call and the demands of international community. This is why this is the right time for Germany to be decisive and more active in stopping Armenian aggression. I think Armenia should obey all these calls, all these demands coming all the countries, including Germany.
Thank you for the statements and interview, Mr. Guliyev.
Thank you very much for that.